people don't pay, then we all know fires can get out of control. It's actually in the interest of the people that are paying to put out the house that is on fire, even though that house isn't subscribed. Because if 10% of the homes end up on fire, if I have 1 out of 10 who haven't paid, if they're all burning, then my house, even though I'm subscribed, right, is going to burn as well, because it's going to overwhelm the fire service. So actually, at the moment a fire breaks out at any house, I want them to put it out, even though that person is freeloading, right? So what does that encourage? It encourages the freeloading. So now nobody's paying for it, but we all have an interest in the fire being put out as soon as possible. What's the right way to do that? Why don't we just make everybody pay a la a tax?
Well, that's not the case, though, because the on-demand service, it wouldn't be, you're not just going to be paying how much you would have paid. You're going to have to pay that fee of an emergency fee, right? You're going to have to, it's not going to be, everybody else is paying for their month or their annual.
What did I just describe?
Jesus, you don't even listen to your own.
Why do I need to
This creates a condition in which you're suggesting instead that what we should do is we should coddle individuals to the point where they won't understand this, because instead we'll just let the state handle it. Let the state handle it, make everybody pay, give them no choice but to pay, put them in jail if they don't pay. People would learn these lessons. Half of Chicago would burn down because of this system. Half of Chicago would burn down. Half of Chicago would burn down because of this system. People would learn the lesson, and they would move forward. They would move forward. They would learn the lesson. What you're asking for is you can force. Okay, never mind. You go ahead.
When you live in a community, there are expectations, and if you do something that's a threat to the community, you get the shit kicked out of you. That's the rules.
So, like, what if I told you my plan would be even better if I got to finish?
We're all beyond stupid and pathetic.
Dealing with your waste, that's not by the government. There's private entities that partake in the system along with, but the government oversees your local government, your municipality, state, you fucking.
You're all stupid and pathetic beyond belief.
You want to throw on there. They all have.
Dr. Australia wrote in the chat. Monica Pig emoji. Why won't the mods kick me? This room is still being recorded. Movie emojis. 5 times YouTube, IG, and Clown House. Thanks everyone for the content harvesting. You are all beyond stupid and pathetic. Welcome back to more stupid.
You don't actually have to say no one actually has to so again, we make money from projects like that. Why would anyone pay for that?
Because
a bridge
sewers
in
require
Canada.
maintenance.
A bridge in Canada makes us almost $1 billion a day. Look, again, when you look at this, you have it affecting an entire state, because some of these systems affect more than just your local HOA community. They affect the entire populace of the state. Who is going to be the enforcement body and mechanism that says, I'm going to cut off water to these people or this farmer? I'm going to dam up the river up there. They dam the shit out of the rivers.
What they would have are water plants where you get the shitty water, or maybe you get low water pressure.
Welcome to Colorado.
If you pay $1,000 extra, you get water pressure. Maybe it gives you some cleaner shit in your faucet. It's crazy. You need a water premium plus.
Okay, so there's you made this point, right? There's already you made a really good point. Chicago did this already. What they did was they reduced the taxes in the city that and the fact that the fire department, the fire response time increased. So they had to face property taxes to levy that risk of fire and property damage. So we have seen this before, where if one would say, hey, I'm going to taxes to the city, and vote to say, hey, I'm not going to do this, it does impact the bigger community as a whole. And we have examples of it, data behind that. Wouldn't you agree
small animal that's this important distinction? It's just obvious that things come in degrees.
Listen, would I like to live in a world where taxes are voluntary? Hell fucking yeah. Unfortunately, I live in a world where people want to live in communities and not
to see this as a parallel to the thing.
You have to solve
the motivation behind the sociological social science use is actually the fact that there is no right to continuum of degrees.
You have to deal with that. that
what
somehow.
white people are doing
And on
to
some level,
black
you
people.
gotta
You
say,
know, there's
listen,
just
you're
like some
gonna occupy, you're gonna be a part of us,
level
you're
of
gonna
degree
pay into
removed from
this.
what black people do
But
to
you
white
just start a
people.
business
It's a
and you have the same
situations.
rights.
And
You
you
know what I
can be
mean?
like, oh well,
It's
I
just an
wanna
education thing.
change
There should be
names
universal
as like
education.
a
I'm saying start a
fictional
business. You
kind
can
of
just
category.
levy all your opportunity
The
as
claim
a
for
business, as a
from
nonprofit
their
that
side
you can do
is
things
like
for society.
it's
You
not
have
a
to
matter
enable
of
yourself
degree, but the
in a way that doesn't make you
things
not pay
are
taxes.
fundamentally different.
Bro, you're sitting here telling me you don't have to pay taxes.
Black
But
person
everyone
being
has
racist
opportunity
versus
not to pay
a
taxes.
white
They
person.
just don't have the education to set up their own companies.
That's
You don't need
or
to
even the context of like, oh, you know, we should be understanding because of like their, you know, experience in the past, etc. Like they're being like discouraged. It's like ignore that. Like we can just say, okay, this
A nonprofit
when a white
organization
person
is doing something, all right? Like, how do you explain?
You can give people
don't
food.
want to pay taxes, period, right? They expect the fire department, they expect police, they expect to be heard in court. They want the mayor to have their interest in line every time they sign and enforce a law, right? But they want to live here without contributing to the community.
If I could give you a scenario that we have in our community where it's years ago.
Where is it?
Communications went out to put some security cameras in our community, and it was going to cost X thousands of dollars, and they promoted it for people to actually participate. And of course, I'm like, it makes sense, go ahead and we gave out a portion of the money, and over years that portion still remained the same, and there were some that would ask some questions as to, hey, have we promoted to try to see if there's other people? Everybody's benefiting from this camera system. Security, hey, makes sense. And here we are, I want to say 4 or 5 years into it. It hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down. So, and I'm fine with it because, that 120 something annual isn't a whole lot. In my
Look at the other side. Doesn't necessarily This fails. Especially, I'll tell you where it fails.
Maybe we should
Netflix. Everybody has like
do some terminological.
For this model, like in your opinion, it didn't work, but I think in other cases there is an interesting case like me, where when a service gets like really popular, they do have to control the market and they increase prices and they also like limit options of content that's available to you. So in some cases it will work, but generally
that's what I was going to get to, is that in this case where the few are benefiting the majority that aren't paying into it, yeah, that's fine. Why? Because probably the few of us who can look at that and say, $10 a month, $12 a month, who cares? But at some point, that could get to a situation where I'm going, wait a minute, $35 a month overall, 10 years, other people are opting out because they know other people have been opting out. I'm going to have to say something. Well, guess what? I cut out. I just stopped.
So, like the idea that Beeman's original proposition would go, and still, if you're still here, or like whatever, it brings me back to the Mexico trifecta, the Wyoming syndicates, the range wars that we had on the frontier. Because basically, in essence, those communities were all situated, had a cohesion. And for those of you that don't know, you should look up range and frontier wars at that time. It had nothing to do with the Indians. It was just Americans basically living in their own libertarian society, controlling their own trade, and fighting with other groups, and taking control over massive amounts. And the government was feckless to do absolutely anything. And they oftentimes didn't. They were actually utilized as the enforcement mechanism for all of these utopian wishes. And they kept pushing this through. Like the Wyoming syndicate was freaking horrific. And it's bloody crusade. It determined who could come in there, who could farm, who could be part of that society. And if they deviated, they didn't want to pay the tax. Their water was cut off. Their animals were ran off. They're in the middle of the night, they would have a fire, magically starting a crop field to push them out. And so this violent reaction is what would eventually lead under this, like, quote, idealism. And somehow or another, people think that you can stop that moral. We'll just put moral. We'll all be moral. We'll cuddly feel. We'll all be fucking Care Bears. And we'll be able to power it away. And it doesn't work that way. Exactly.
Yeah, nobody's saying that. That's definitely not what a voluntary society That's not the goal of a voluntary society. That's not what it claims to do in any case. All that it claims to do is that it creates voluntary associations versus forceful associations. So all of the things that we think that we're doing that are good ideas, we would still be doing them. We would just be able to do them at a greater degree because we wouldn't have the force of government intervention regulating us out of our ability to do those things. And I still don't understand.
Have government intervention during the frontier wars. You didn't have it because the government wasn't there. These weren't states. These were